Hello everyone, and welcome to Captain's Audio. I just wanted to hop on and give a short video just sort of describing the process that I use when it comes to finding audiobooks or other media that I'm trying to try out for. And I just wanted to give you guys sort of a behind the scenes view on it. So as you can see here, going on my screen right now, we have my program that I use, which is Reaper Audio. I use it primarily because that's what I could find the most tutorials on, and it's just sort of what I connect with the most. Originally, when I started, I was using Audacity, but I found this to be a lot better suited to what I'm trying to do. We're going to unarm that one real quick. So all of this down here is going to be my video audio. Don't let that be too distracting as it rolls along as we go through. What I wanted to show you is first off my process of preparing to find something, and then I'm going to show you my actual process for how I find materials that I would like to try out for or audition. So we're going to start with just the setup process. As you can see here, I've already got some set up, obviously because I needed to start the video, but I just wanted to run through what that looks like for me. So I have a base setup here that I utilize that primarily focuses on just making sure that I have all the effects that I need to make my voice sound crisp, to make it sound clear, to make it sound not as muddied or muffled. So if we go to our effects page here, these effects are added to every single one of the audio tracks that I use, and this is just a default that I've set up for Reaper. So as soon as I enter Reaper, it should automatically bring up these as my baseline for effects. I go ahead and I add a gate, and all this does is it makes it so that background noise isn't as loud, isn't as noticeable, or is cut out completely. So for those who don't know, I just sort of work in my closet for the time being to deaden the sound, and although I do have a pretty decent setup, all things considered, and it is very soundproofed in here, it still isn't perfect, and there's a little bit of humming from time to time. And so I went ahead and just started a very small gate, and all this does is it cuts out some of the noise, some of the underlying noise, some of the stuff that's too quiet to be in the actual recording. We don't want this to be too high, because if we move it up too high, then it's going to start cutting off my voice, because essentially all it does is any noise that's lower than the gate that I've set is automatically removed. Next up, we have the compressor. The compressor is just used to make sure that my voice isn't going too high and that it just kind of compresses everything into one general area, so that way it can't get too high or too low. This is especially important when you have a dynamic voice, and one thing that I have a little bit of an issue with when it comes to creating things like audiobooks and things of that nature is I tend to be very expressive with my voice, and that can adjust throughout time, and so I want to use this just to kind of give me a baseline of the volume level. And I don't go too aggressive with it just because I don't want it to actually change my voice in any way, but I do try to make it so that it has roughly the same volume throughout, and it's not as dynamic. You can still hear the ups and downs in my tone, but you can't necessarily hear it in the volume as much, which is great. Next up, we have our EQ. Our EQ is just what we use to take out certain specific frequencies that we don't like. And normally what this is used for is specific noises in the recordings that aren't necessarily good, specific noises that might detract from the voice, or maybe that are annoying in the background. We can use the EQ to cut out specific frequencies, or as you can see up here, to boost other ones. So my high tones can be kind of drowned out, and so I like to boost those just a little bit, just to give a little bit more clarity in my voice, just so people can understand it a bit better. And then lastly, we have our limiter. Our limiter is here just because, again, sometimes I get a little bit too excited, a little bit too dynamic, and I want to make sure that I'm not blowing anybody's eardrums off. And then also, this serves a second, more important purpose, where oftentimes when you're doing a book through something like ACX, for example, over here, they have a specific requirement that it cannot be over when it comes to the noise or the level of volume, and that tends to be around -3 to about 0. And so I just have this here to make sure that no matter what I do or no matter how loud I go, even if it peaks, it never goes over that threshold. Granted, we're hoping not to get any peaks at all, so that shouldn't be an issue, hopefully. So as you can see, this is continuing going, and it will continue to do so as we talk, just in the background. So, my actual process. I wanted to show you guys what I do for ACX specifically. I use a lot of platforms, or I try to use a lot of platforms, some of them not as much as others. I use things like Voices. I use Voices 1, 2, 3. Anyone who's familiar with voice acting or familiar with maybe acting in general, Backstage is another one. They'll recognize the names of these. And so I use these platforms, but it's also important to note that because I am sort of trying to build this from nothing, from the limited acting experience that I do have, I don't really make enough to actually make this a full-time thing. And so usually when I am doing voice acting or when I am auditioning for things, it is late at night after I've gotten home from my day job, and I'm looking to just try to get better in this area, try to make a name for myself, and just do it because it's my passion. And so oftentimes I don't have the money that I can spend to actually work on specific platforms. So for example, Backstage. Backstage is a nice one because there is a 2-week free trial that I was able to use to just sort of audition for as many things as I could within those 2 weeks. I haven't heard back from a whole lot of them because I just now recently did that, but it was really nice to have that free trial. But that being said, I don't really have the funds to actually purchase that for a year. It's somewhere around $500 a year for a subscription to Backstage. And so as much as I would like to get more audition possibilities, it's just not something that's practical for me. So I tend to stick to things like Casting Call Club, which is just a place to collaborate with other actors and other people who are looking for things like voice actors, for singers, for animators, things of that nature. Usually I'm always going to filter it for voice actor. So far I haven't actually auditioned for any of these, primarily just because these tend to be either student-led or smaller projects, or, sometimes I want to be associated with things that people will take seriously, and as you can see, some of these aren't really my vibe. And so that being said, I tend so far to stick with ACX. Now, ACX is a platform that specifically works with audiobooks, and it is the platform that Audible uses to find voice actors and to pair them with people who need voice actors for their audiobooks. In this case, as you can see, I have my projects here. I have 181 projects, and these are just the different things that I can audition for. I can go to Find Projects, and it will show them just like that. That being said, I've broken things down into the different genres that I'm interested in, into the different price points. There are only a couple things that I don't have here. Anything that's like 18 plus, I don't really have an interest in narrating any of that. And then also, so there is a specific project budget that is royalties, and that'll just take a small portion of what the book makes, and it will give you whatever you get for that. And I've done a couple of royalty books, but so far I haven't had the best experience with those. you're not getting a whole lot because they take a lot off the top, and so you end up only getting like $3 to $4, even if there are like tens of books bought. And so, it just really wasn't vibing with me. So as much as I would love to, I haven't really had a great experience with that. And you can see if I go to sales overview, or actually we'll go ahead and go to my projects and, my projects. And we're going to go to completed. So here you can see I have completed a couple that are live already. This was my very first book. It does not sound great. I'm not going to lie. It sounds a little worse than what I do now. Then I had these other two books, which that's better sounding, but it's still not the best. It's still not what I have right now for my setup. But all of these are live. But even with all three of these live, I think total I've made about $5 from all of them. And so it's just not a great way to make a whole lot of money. And as much as money isn't my main goal, it is something that I am cognizant of, because the only budget that I have for getting better equipment, for finding a better space, for soundproofing in here better, things of that nature, the only budget that I have for this is what I can make off of these audiobooks. And so we're just trying to work on balancing the budget and the interest and exposure. So the next step is we're going to look for something that interests us. So in this case, we're going to scroll down. As you can see, there's a whole lot of options. I like to increase the results per page just so I don't have to keep scrolling through a whole ton of stuff. There are a lot of options here. I think for this one, for the most part, I look for anything that is under 3 hours or 3 to 5 hours. If something piques my interest, I'll go above that. However, the main issue is, like I said, this is a side job for the time being. It's something I do because I'm interested in it. And unfortunately, I don't have as much time as I would like. So in this case, we're going to do one that's 3 to 5 hours. You can see that the budget is 50 to 100. PFH just means per finished hour. All that means is that's based off of how long the material is once it's been edited, once it's been cut properly, things of that nature. So we can also see things like when was it posted February 6th. We can read a little bit more about it. So here, it's short stories for seniors. It's a heartwarming collection of easy-to-read tales. It celebrates life's lighter side. From 1950s, Grandpa's Great Fishing Tales. Each story feels like a warm conversation with an old friend. This is the type of stuff we want to see when we're looking at these. Each story feels like a warm conversation with an old friend. So go ahead, pour yourself a cup of coffee, settle into your favorite chair, and let these stories transport you back into the days of laughter, love, and lasting memories, whether you're reading for relaxation, nostalgia, or connection. So the main idea that we want to come across with this is we want it to be inviting, and we can see a little bit more if we read the notes from the rights holder. So narration style, we want it to be a warm tone, friendly and conversational. Think trusted storyteller rather than announcer. So we want it to be inviting, right? We want it to sound, so instead of something like, and hello everyone, we don't want it to sound like we're doing a radio broadcast. We don't want it to sound like we're introducing a game. We want it to sound like we're telling a story. We're talking to a friend, we're a little bit warm. We're a little bit more back and forth. Humor should feel gentle and natural, not exaggerated or cartoonish. Voice preference, they're open to both male and female. Great, because we're looking for that. A mature, calm, and reassuring voice is ideal. So, this is where I start to consider, am I right for this? There are different types of voices, and different people are looking for different things. I don't want to have a heavy accent. I don't feel like I have a heavy accent. I feel like I'm pretty good at communicating. Light humor and heartfelt moments are important. Production notes, clean professional audio with minimal processing. That's huge. We want to minimize the amount of editing we're doing, but we want it to sound clean. We want it to sound crisp. They're short and varied, so smooth transitions and consistency in tone are key. No character voices required. So, we want to make sure that we are just providing a natural, calming. It says more mature, so I'll probably stick a little bit more to my lower register, right? So our next step, this sounds like something I might be interested in, right? I don't know if I'm the type of person they're looking for, but it sounds interesting and it sounds cozy, it sounds warm. So I'm going to go ahead and just download the Audition script here, and it should show up. There you go. So you'll see, usually they'll provide an Audition script, something that they would like for you to read off. In addition, they can also see in our bio up at the top, they can look and see sort of what our credits are. They'll see some other examples of things that I've done, things of that nature. All right. So here we can see that there are like 3 different stories all happening all at once. I guess 2. Just one of them is 3 different pages. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to drag it over to the left, so that way we can work on it at the same time that we can see our recording. And we want this to be a little bit smaller. There we go. Now we're going to set up our actual recording. So under track 1, we're going to list it as Audition, and we're going to list what we're auditioning for. So here we're auditioning for short stories for seniors. Audition. Short stories for seniors. And that is it for setting up our recording. So now we've got our audition ready, and all I have to do is hit record arm/disarm, and it will start the recording once I hit the record button. But we're not going to get into that today with today's video, just because we're already past the 17-minute mark. And this is our first attempt at a long-form video. So that being said, if you want to see more, if you want me to go through the actual process of recording an audition, if you want to see the punch and roll technique that I use, if you want to see the editing strategies that I use, please let me know down in the comments. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing, as like I said, this is something that I'm really interested in, and it's something that I'm trying to get into more. And that being said, if you are a sound engineer, or if you're a voiceover artist who happens to see this and you have ideas, or you have corrections, or maybe things to help assist in this process, I would love to know what you have to say or what you think. So just make sure that you leave a like, subscribe if you liked it, and comment down below if you have anything to add. And I appreciate you being here. I'll see you all later.